Joining us. Let me give a brief intro here to Todd. He is the VP of Product Marketing at Demandbase with 19 years of marketing experience, including 15 years in B2B SaaS product marketing. He has built 3 B2B SaaS product marketing practices from the ground up. Todd, thanks so much for joining us, and I'll turn the time over to you.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Pete. And you actually just beat me to what's going to be my first intro slide, so even better. So we'll go ahead and get through that one. Again, really happy to be here today. The only other piece that I would add on in terms of like intro and background is a lot of what you're going to hear today I learned half by like reading and listening and talking to people, and half of it was by doing things that I got right and wrong along the way. So hopefully everyone will be able to learn from me and in ways where I've done some good things and also stumped my toes. So looking forward to sharing with you over the next 20 or so minutes. So wanting to just make sure and anchor on where our goals are today. Want to provide content around AI messaging, both internal and external. So so much of the summit I know has been aimed around like, how are you using AI and tooling? This is a deliberate kind of departure from that here at the end. I believe in our Olympic season, I'm bringing up the anchor. So excited to kind of have a shift in the content to be, again, more focused towards that messaging and making sure that that messaging is looking right for multiple audiences in ways that ultimately get people nodding their heads and pulling out their wallets for you. So that's number one. The second goal is I want to leave you just a little more comfortable, conversant, and even opinionated on AI and how to help position and message around that. This does content will lean more B2B and software. I will caveat, I am a product marketing and messaging expert. I am not an AI expert, so technical depth we'll leave it for others. Also want to just acknowledge that because we are still, especially within Gen AI, are more in still the kind of the wild west of AI, things will change. And so what's good here today may not necessarily be good here tomorrow. So things move fast, as we know. We will have some time for Q&A at the end, and we'll make sure that the deck is available as well. So I know we've got the comments. I'm going to flip over to that so I can see people's responses come in. I wanted to just take a moment, like maybe hopefully any good product marketer is kind of tune a little bit of the message to the audience as well. So curious to just understand from you in terms of if you'll put some letters in for those of you still with us, if you're along the lines of E, F, G, or H in terms of your comfort level and understanding when talking about AI. If you're very comfortable, somewhat uncomfortable, you're somewhat comfortable, or very comfortable. So we'll caveat that this content is more geared towards kind of the first three. If you can go toe to toe with some technical folks, then you should probably be leading the charge here. So the second question I want to just again take a pulse for folks is understanding your current company's products, kind of current state of affairs with AI, whether you're leveraging AI, you're starting to, you're not leveraging it yet, but you're kind of building, you're already leveraging that today, or maybe there's some folks here who are actually in an AI technology company. So seeing some of those answers start to roll in as well. So that's great. We'll go and move into some of the content. So what we're going to do, there's a touch of a primer, and then we'll take a look at some do's and don'ts at a glance, and then kind of deeper dive on each in terms of AI messaging. So let's dive in there. Brief primer here. So as everyone well knows by now, AI is everywhere. It is the buzziest of buzzies, and the noise to signal ratio is just staggeringly high. It's like political news right now, where you can find an article or a POV to essentially support whatever you want to think. And you have also many stakeholders with a wide variety of views on AI. I know Brian was just talking earlier about some people love this and into it and need to see it everywhere, and others are really scared of it. So some of what he mentioned there, we'll touch on a little bit here as well. So there's actually signal too starting to emerge that the investor community is starting to see an AI bubble, and that's interesting. That's happened over maybe the last month or so. I am not paid to prognosticate on these sorts of things, but I will say that knowing that customers typically lag Wall Street here and the investor community, we should safely assume that the AI hype bubble is not going to burst for customers anytime soon. So understanding that that's the case, then let's take a look at our kind of do's and don'ts at a glance. I am pulling from a presentation I've given before, by the way, that's about 45 minutes in length. And so I've consolidated some of here. And so you'll see some evidence of that, but really want to drive home four total points, 2 do's and 2 don'ts. So in terms of do number 1 is we want to make sure that we are kind of customer conversational with our AI. 2, our don't number 1 is let's not make broad AI claims to our customers. Our don't number 2 is let's not say the same thing to everyone. And then our do number 2 is we want to demystify and reduce that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or FUD. Brian mentioned some of that as well, in terms of like there are some in the market, especially higher regulated industries where that FUD is high, and we need to respond well to that. So let's dig into those 4. I encourage you to hear my perspective, decide if or how much you agree with that. Like lots of cutting edge topics, hard and fast rules are tougher to come by. So either way, you'll have a stronger perspective coming out of this. All right, so as we've said, as AI isn't going anywhere, best thing for your job now and career overall is to acquire some functional breadth and depth here. And so we're going to start by panning way out before we kind of peel some onion back in. So peeling the onion from the very top, highest altitude, there's essentially 3 levels of successive AI. We are in the ANI, or artificial narrow intelligence today. Arguably, depending on which prognosticators you're listening to, AGI, or artificial general intelligence, could have somewhere of a 2040 to 2050 time horizon, and then artificial superintelligence after that, and maybe never. So important, I want to just peel the onion way back enough to just say that when we say AI, what do we actually mean from those who spend every single day here? We are living in the world of the left. We are living in the world of artificial narrow intelligence. So anytime we're saying AI, that's what we really mean today. That's what we really mean by and large for B2B SaaS organizations and B2B technology organizations, is we're sitting on that left side. So lots of things inside. If we kind of click on that ANI piece and kind of just recategorize it back to AI, there's lots inside. If you're like most, you haven't heard of what's on this left side, or if you have, you kind of stops at, I know this is a thing. The important part here is understanding that why we use AI is to teach a machine to do a specific task better and faster than a human being. The rest is really just more of the how. And I've found that whenever you're messaging around AI, the how and kind of how the sausage is made is really largely left for that kind of higher technical audience. A lot of when you're in marketing and sales conversations, you really want to elevate that conversation to the why. A lot of times what that means is that customers today are typically ready and able to talk about and understand AI at the level on the right, which is, are we using AI? Yes. What type? It's going to be typically either ML or Gen AI. And then this is really broad strokes, but again, trying to just overly simplify for the sake of our customer conversations. What type? ML, been around for a long time. All of you are probably already using it in some sort of capacity. And then the Gen AI is certainly the source of all of the hype cycle for today. Typically, those use cases today are you're using existing Gen AI, like LLMs like ChatGPT or Claude, to do X, Y, Z in your product. Oftentimes, it's text scaling based. So it's taking a lot of text and summarizing to a little, or a lot of inputs and summarizing into something compact. Or in the opposite, where you're taking a few inputs and a few like compact data points and then expanding that to more conversational text. So conceptually, that's where those conversations seem to end from a customer standpoint. Again, highly technical audiences notwithstanding. So Number one then is make broad AI claims to customers. And the subtext here is, and don't do that and expect it will matter to them. So doing so is really only going to add to the noise. It causes eyes to roll. We see our friend Andy Raskin here with some tongue-in-cheek commentary. But really, the signal is found by being understanding and catering to what your audiences actually care about. I love the point here. I heard in a recent AI and marketing podcast, which was no one really asked for AI. We don't inherently care about that. What we care about is outcomes. And I know Brian spoke to this in the session just before this. It's really about what are the best outcomes that I can get these days, and often those are now aided by AI. So if we turn attention to what does that mean in terms of how we might translate that and not just make broad claims, what that actually means is we want to go through this translation exercise that brings us more from feature-based messaging into more value-based messaging. Now, hopefully all of us and our marketing teams, our product marketing teams are doing this already generally, but AI is no exception for how you want to really be intentional in kind of going through this translation exercise that I've laid out here from left to right on moving that AI conversation from it's just making that broad claim of, yes, we use AI enabled, AI powered, and stopping the conversation there. Because ultimately what we need to do is anchor on that customer value, and that customer value has to go through this translation exercise. So it's not just that we're using that we're providing features that use some sort of ML or generative AI capabilities. It's that you're able, is what that capability unlocks for you. What is that new capability? What is that pain that gets solved? Who is the audience that gets solved for? And then translate that into the benefits that come from it. Oftentimes for business benefits, that is one of three things. That is either you are increasing revenue, you are decreasing cost, or you're creating time savings. So typically from a business benefit, it's one of those. It's important to also draw in from a benefit standpoint. What are those emotional benefits? What is it where it's like, if it's trust, it's transparency, or it's some of those emotional benefits of like, this allows me to have greater confidence in what I'm doing because I can take a whole lot of information and synthesize it into something that I know is compact and punchy and ready to go the other way around. So a lot of that, you want to make sure that you're covering off on customer value, anchoring there from a business benefit and from an emotional benefit. Because at the end, we're still talking to human beings as well, not just the businesses. Okay, so moving forward then, what is the next do and don't? The next don't is we don't want to say the same thing to everyone. Customers, we talked about that in the slide before and kind of how we want to try and anchor on that customer value. One other piece that I want to share here is there are customers, and you're probably already seeing this, if not, you will soon. There are customers who are starting to ask for things like, what's your AI roadmap? What are you using in terms of AI today? What are you using in terms of AI tomorrow? This is a fun new proxy for really asking the question of, are you innovating? If I buy from you, do I have the confidence that 6, 12, 18, 24 months from now, that I am still going to be happy with this decision to have bought from you because you are still innovating and giving me the latest and greatest technology that's going to come down 6, 12, 18 plus months from now? So that conversation, honestly, before the AI hype cycle started, that conversation was more about just general innovation. You had the ability to show a lot of things in your past and in your future roadmaps of how you're going to innovate. Now people are really starting to kind of myopically focus that conversation on AI and asking specifically for AI roadmaps. So it's very, very important that you have an answer. I recommend actually having a dedicated AI roadmap deck that you can provide to marketing and sales conversations, bringing that into things like webinars, like having that touch point where you can really start to answer that question. And I don't love the fact that this is the case in the market right now, but it's almost more important that you have an answer, less important of like what the answer is and all those things that you're doing. But if you have an answer, it gets that box checked for the customer of sigh of relief. I trust that if I go with you and I buy from you, that you check the box that you are innovating and that I'm going to have an innovative solution 12 months from now. I can have confidence that I'm picking the right solution. Okay, so that's customers. Your executive leadership team or your board is a little bit different, right? So we want to not say the exact same things to them as well. Some of this is in terms of internal messaging is really important, and making sure that we are communicating out and up in the right ways. So for ELT and board, it can be a little more binary, right? Where it can be a little more of are we using AI, right? Can we tell our investors or the street that we are? So that incentive is really, again, translating to like being more cutting edge, riding that AI wave, being able to check the box from a validation purpose. The interesting piece here is that there's a narrative in the community right now that if you are not using AI, that your market valuation could drop upwards of 40%. I'll say that again. If there's a narrative, especially in any sort of technology-based organization, that if you are not using AI, your market valuation could drop upwards of 40% just by not using or saying that you are using AI. So we want to be careful and not get over our skis, not paint pictures that aren't true. But at the same time, it's important to understand that from an executive standpoint, from a board standpoint, where a lot of that incentive comes from driving market valuation, that AI narrative, that's kind of the underlying reason why we may be feeling so much of that pressure internally to try and AI wash everything, is because we want to try and make sure that doesn't have a negative, that not doing that has a negative impact on market valuation. Okay, lastly, and that's related to kind of the investor relations community. IR, you can kind of be bucketed in with ELT and the board, but it's interesting because with them and especially AR, like your analyst relations community, they're going to start to care actually more than your board, more than your customers about what specific kinds of AI are you using and how is it being used in a novel way to solve customer problems. AR, your analyst relations coverage, they're going to want to see this. They're going to want to care and understand, and again, see that translation exercise of how that tech is turning into customer value. And what this also means too is that technical diligence. The best thing to do in terms of bringing that technical, more of the technical depth to an AR audience is going to mean you're going to want to bring in your friends in product management and engineering and data science. The idea is to match technical prowess with technical prowess. So make sure that you guard against again where you're having like marketing and sales level conversations with technical folks who need technical answers. So in summary, right, for all of these audiences, again, just make sure we're not saying the exact same thing to everyone, because their incentives and what they care about is coming from a different place. Okay, starting to get to the home stretch here. So this was a bonus one. I mentioned this came from a larger presentation, so I'm calling this kind of don'ts 2.1 and 2.2. I'll move quickly here, but all to say, don't claim to be an AI company unless you actually are, right? Like OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, Jasper, like these are AI products and companies. Be careful and intentional with make your claims around being an AI company versus having AI enabled or powered products and innovations. Secondly, careful on the renaming piece, right? So like, especially as I think there's starting in the investor community to start to see some of that bubble soften, or start to move towards the bubble is growing a little bit in that investor community, right? Be careful here in terms of like making some big flag plants, like changing your website URL, changing company or product names to AI and just AI washing everything. We do want to try and reserve that for AI naming where it is actually using AI. Hopefully that one's an obvious one, but especially too where it can define that's how the product is differentiated. And where you're specifically wanting to try and draw attention and that perception that that's where you are innovating. So when you're using that AI in terms of a naming standpoint, again, just be very intentional there and use that to your advantage where it's not going to be out in front over your skis. Okay. Last to do here is we want to demystify and remove some fear, uncertainty, and doubt. As Brian had mentioned actually in the last session, is there are some folks who this is more scary than anything, right? You look at more regulated industries, financial services, public sector, areas where you work with a lot of PII. A lot of that, this can be more scary than good. And so what I would say, two do's in terms of how to demystify and kind of remove that FUD is to focus on transparency and trust. Transparency in the terms of opening up how it works, what data is used and what data is not used is sometimes just as important. And make sure that you're tying all of this back to the value provided. It is not like the transparency of how you are using AI, how you're using ML or Gen AI is if you can tie that back to the value and have their brains centered on the value, then the how becomes less important. The other piece I would say to focus on here is from a trust standpoint, and this removes some of that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Where you want to be very close to your friends in legal and data privacy. You want to ensure that you have all of your ducks in a row in terms of what you are communicating, so that if anyone wants to double or triple click into your privacy and regulations, they have content to look at. Secondly, there is as these LLMs also start to be able, to become more pervasive in our technologies, it's increasingly critical to communicate when it's true, which is hopefully a lot of the time, that their data is not used for training purposes, because a lot of times that translates back into privacy issues where their data is used in ways that they didn't necessarily consent or doesn't provide that customer value, right? It's providing value for others. So there's option. You can earn trust by being explicit with where your data is or is not used in training. And then lastly, and this is kind of a nice to have, is working with your product teams and deriving a productized ability to control, to limit, or even toggle on and off the use of AI. So especially if you're marketing and selling into those sorts of industries where there is a strong fear component, where there is higher regulation, there's higher use of PII. There's increased desire that we're seeing in the market to productize the ability to throttle or even turn off the use of AI. So to the degree that you can do that, obviously that's not a quick and easy thing to do, but if that's something where you can get that put into your product, then that's a critical piece to draw through into your positioning and messaging, to be able to, again, remove that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Is like, there's all these reasons why you should actually love this, and they were tying this back to value. But at the end of the day, if that still leaves you with fear and doubt, you have the ability to control, throttle, or turn off that AI. So that can be a great value to your customers. Okay, that is at 24 minutes. So I'll quickly open it up and look and see if there's any questions in the comments. And then otherwise, please reach out on LinkedIn. There's my email at Demandbase, and thank you all very much for having me. Looking for questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Todd. Appreciate that. One thing I did want to ask you as you were going through this, we could almost reverse engineer that for our listeners here and saying, what are some of the red flags that either you look for or that you've seen when evaluating AI tools, that you would say, hey, these are things you want to avoid, like even giving the impression of having these red flags in these AI tools or softwares?
Yeah, to me, the transparency piece is super important, and what I'm looking for in any of my own like tooling that where I'm kind of sitting on the other side, right? So much of and a lot of that comes back to ML models as well, right? Like there's synthesis of data, and it's just these large complex like just data lakes, and then out pops a single answer. And oftentimes that comes with an inherent need to just trust that answer. And if you're lacking some of that transparency around like how you actually got to that answer, then that can actually create that creates to me that doesn't fulfill my needs. Like part of what I want to see is a little bit of like show me the math, like kind of show me your homework of how you got there. So I'll give you only because it's super top of mind, is I'll give you an example really from a demand-based standpoint.
Yeah.
So we have functionality where we use it's the core of our AI usage and MLs, where we bring in tons of third-party data, first-party data. We enrich all of that. We have just this massive collection of data, and then we ask it questions. We basically have tuned our models where we can ask it questions like, based on all of these signals coming in, intent signals, firmographics, technographics, what accounts should I target? What people are doing what? Who are the buying groups inside of that? So if one person is doing it, who are the 5 other people I should be talking to? And a lot of times that's where it stops. And in our market, in our like kind of account-based marketing is like, okay, here's the accounts, the contacts, and the buying groups that I should go target. What's missing there is the transparency of what are they doing? Why is that a high value target for me? And from an account and contact and buying group standpoint, how does it match to like, show me the homework on what are they doing from an engagement standpoint, and how are you showing me that they're a fit for my ICP and what I'm looking for? So to me, it's not just like giving the answer and kind of having just a black box of here's the answer, go do it, but being able to double click in and show the homework, show the rationale for how it got to that answer.
Excellent. Well, Todd, thank you so much for joining us at the AI Revenue Summit. Really appreciate hearing from you and the insights and wisdom that you had to share with us. So again, thank you, Todd, VP of Product and Marketing at Demandbase.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you.